Okay, so this is the handout that I would like to discuss with you that will just give you an overlook or a very, we can call it a survey kind of an understanding of romanticism. Romanticism is quite easier yet complicated in terms of its theme and vastness, but in my experience over the years, students do enjoy. Now, half of the students they enjoy classism, and half of them they really enjoy romanticism. This is something that you need to decide once you have developed more familiarity with romanticism. Now, romanticism has very little to do with what we have been, thinking about in terms of romance. Whatever we have understood in the modern world, that is not what the romanticism we are discussing at the moment. That is a little different. It's a international philosophical artistic movement. It is an intellectual movement that focused not only on art but other forms of art as well. It encompasses and it fundamentally discusses Western cultures and how they perceive themselves around them. So, Romanticism is more than what it seems like in terms of its name only. There are certain historical considerations, I'll just quickly tell you some of it. Now, of course, it is not a movement that only came from England and Germany, and it is not written in the language of Romance languages. Any idea, anybody who knows what are Romance languages and why they are called Romance languages?
मैम आई डोंट नो मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा है फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज में भी
Yes, French is one of those.
यस
That
यस
French is considered to be a Romance language. Spanish is there, Romanian is there.
यस
There are other
इटालियन
Italian
यस
is there, very good. These languages they are usually associated with romantic movement and romance languages. But the romanticism we are talking about does not necessarily entail this only. It is also about England and Germany, and we are more concerned with England because we are reading that poetry specifically. So we are more, inclined towards that. Other than that, they've mentioned Lyrical Ballads. That's a book written by William Wordsworth and Coleridge. And they have given a rough estimate. Remember, there is no clear cut estimations given in any historical book about any age or movement. In all the books, you might find different demarcations. For example, in this handout, the demarcation is between 1798 to 1832. They are talking about that this is roughly the spectrum of the age or chronological spectrum that could be there, that would be between 1770 to 1870. So they keep on, expanding it. So in different books, different divisions might be found, but in this handout, you can clearly see that. Other than that, they have also mentioned now in lyrical ballads, Wordsworth and Coleridge, they've talked about what poetry should be, what are the characteristics of a romantic poet, and what are the agendas or aims of romantic poetry could be. I hope you remember the definition that I once shared with you about the poetry by Wordsworth. He has defined it as an overflow of spontaneous emotions felt in tranquility. So that is what has been, entered in this book called lyric. It's actually prefaced to lyrical ballads. So ये book जो है एक pioneering book है for romantic age. Other than that, um, a composition named Hymns to Night by Novalis is also one of the demarcated works that could be included in this. And then they have mentioned Sir Walter Scott and Goethe. However, if we move forward to international movement affecting all kinds of arts out there, romanticism began in 1770s. So it's not exactly 1798. Nothing is abrupt in literature. Nothing is abrupt. It takes a lot of efforts from the history into the future, and all the historical components or some of the historical components could make its way to the later centuries. So हर चीज़ से किसी ना किसी हिसाब से किसी न किसी कनेक्शन से जुड़ी हो सकती है, राइट? एंड लेटर इन अमेरिकन लिटरेचर फॉर यूरोपियन arts like music, painting, etc., everything was included in literature, became part of romanticism. So romanticism did not only occur in poetry, it happened in every sphere of life. Painting हो जाए, sketching हो जाए, sculpturing हो जाए, कोई भी artistic एक्सप्रेशन का तरीका हो उसमें इसने अपना इंक्लूजन दिया. Even it was able to change the perspective of general audiences as well. So the broader extended chronological spectrum could be defined or framed between 1770 to 1880. Right, then they've mentioned William Blake and Robert Burns, then Schiller is there, and etc. I would just quickly like to show you another handout so that you have an idea. Now look at this one. If you look at this one, you are going to read it, of course, at your own. You can clearly see that they're talking about background of the romantic movement, definition of romanticism, salient features of romanticism, and then they give you early romantic poets, which are not usually discussed. Yeah, ठीक है, हम हमेशा mostly we start with William Wordsworth, but it's not over the night that romanticism took place. All of these people, in terms of poetry, also contributed into what became romanticism later on, and William Wordsworth and Coleridge are the flag bearers because they wrote about it in criticism as well. Therefore, they are given more credit. But these poets that I've highlighted for you on screen, they're also part of the same category. William Blake is very famous in terms of that. He has written Songs of Innocence, in which he clearly talks about that in order to feel, in order to experience innocence, you have to go through corruption. Without understanding day, you cannot understand night. So that contrasting image is also given by the poet in such you can call it perspectives. ठीक है, ये बात समझ आ रही है कि इस हैंड आउट में आपको इसकी और डिटेल भी मिल सकती है, तो आप यहाँ से भी इसको पढ़ सकते हैं. अच्छा, उसके अलावा जो इम्पोर्टेंट बात है, the early romantic period thus coincides with what is often called the age of revolution. I hope you remember that uh, Romanticism came as a revolt against neoclassics. They wanted to break away, free themselves from the traditional and monotonous ways of writing poetry. They wanted to experience something new. They wanted to experiment with something new, and that is exactly what has happened over here. ठीक है, उसके बाद it has a revolutionary energy, right? If you read this line, a revolutionary energy was also the core of Romanticism, which quite consciously set out to transform not only the theory and practice of poetry, but every other way that we perceive the world into. Then comes one of the major, we can call it characteristics of romanticism, that is imagination. Now I would like to request you to read it for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we can have a discussion on it. Please read it, and then I'll tell you something about it. So imagination being one of the major characteristics of romanticism, they're also important to imagination is a complicated power or a capacity or a faculty of mind. And for romantics, imagination was the highest position in the faculty mind, or in the mind of a human being. Imagination was more superior as compared to reason. It had the creative and shaping power. They believed that it had the ultimate power to create and recreate. Like I shared something with you about how we can create a new reality from the existing reality. We can produce and reproduce the ideas into one or two. And that is the ability that imagination has. It is dynamic and it's not passive, and it has many ways through which it can function into many other creative arts. And on the broader scale, it also helps human senses as well. They used a term over here, it's called ultimate synthesizing faculty. Anybody who can decipher what it could mean? Remember that imagination has more superiority as compared to reason. That is what romantics believed. And it is active and dynamic. It has the creative and shaping power. All the art could be created out of imagination, and it has the ability to adhere to experiences into intellectual intuitions. Now, intellectual intuition simply means that Usually, intuition has nothing to do with intellectuality or with the reasoning, but again, it's a paradoxical phrase, and that is how Coleridge has described imagination, that it is an intellectual intuition. Intuition hota hai vajdan, that the feeling that you come from within. So, imagination is an encompass or an amalgam of the ultimate synthesizing faculty. What does that mean? Anybody who can decipher that?
Perception and understanding.
Okay, perception and understanding. Ultimate means the supreme. Synthesizing means taking all kinds of similarities and differences together, and faculty is human faculty. So, this ultimate synthesizing faculty has the ability to make the human mind to be able to reconcile differences and opposites of the worlds of appearance and then create a new reality out of it. That is the central core of romantics. That is the central idea that the romantics so dearly follow. So, romanticism is the reconciliation of opposites, right? It is a broader spectrum that has to do with art and intellectual movement. It's a revolution, it's a change, it's a new lens to see new things, new imaginations, and much more. And one of the most important concepts of romanticism is imagination. Then comes the next one that has to do with nature. And nature could be defined in many ways. It had many meanings for the romantics. They did not see nature the way we see nature. Whenever I ask students what is nature, for them, nature is trees and spacious places and parks and etc. But that is exactly not only the thing that romantics saw in nature. They defined it, they had many meanings associated with it. They believed, they saw it as a work of art and divine imagination. They also saw it as an emblematic language, which is this language of symbol, that they could have an understanding out of it through many symbols that could be there. So their imagination, their divine imagination, was very much, we can say, activated. Then they have mentioned Whitman's Song of Myself, and what he did in his work, that he started treating common places or items or things with such divine elements, with such divine extended metaphors. He considered ants, stones, pokeweed as something that is the handkerchief of the Lord or hieroglyphic. For example, how can an ant or how can the grass can be as green as the green handkerchief of Lord? So he was this comparison is far fetched. The Whitman definitely started it somewhere. So this particular perspective with regard to nature definitely varied considerably for many poets in different ways. Now, all the romantic poets or writers did not see nature in exactly same way. All of them, they had different ways to look at it. Some of them looked at it as a healing power. Some of them took refuge in it. Some of them understood it to be a poetic subject or imagery. यानी सबके लिए अपना अपना एक meaning था. It was not scientific, it was not rational, it was not mechanical. It was rather very personal for them. It was very imaginative for them. It was kind of like artificial world that they created in their own mind. So for them, nature was organic, and it's not something that you can force or make robot like. So they had differences that way as well. Other than that, another important point that is mentioned over here, that romantics also paid attention to description of natural phenomena. They were very much descriptive about what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say. They would use sensuous nuance, and that is the true core of romantic landscape, where they are co-joining nature and poetry together, and they have accuracy of observation. And that accuracy does not end in itself. It still has something more to offer. There could be meditation and reflection that is mainly used. So romanticism, or for romantics, nature was not just a scenery or grass or trees. It was a living, breathing, spiritual, symbolic, healing feeling that was deeply rooted into human thought. So they did not discard human thought altogether. They still believed in it, but they also believed in the supremacy of feeling, that phenomena, that cognition may develop out of that thought process that is there in the mind. How you perceive things, how you accept things will definitely um, make your understanding of certain things different from the others. The next section, like in the beginning, one of you asked about myth, that how and why do they use myth. Now in romanticism, symbolism is important, right? See, ism is the study and symbol, as you understand. So symbolism and myth were very important in any art, let alone poetry, right? And romantics, true romantics at heart, they believed that nature's symbolic language is real, and what nature represents, that is also there. For example, they wanted to show growth, they would be showing a stem that will sprout into a flower, and that flower will ripe into a fruit and etc. यानी वो एक नेचर के प्रोसेस को दिखाकर उस प्रोसेस को शो कर सकते थे. They were that much um, we can say equipped with such imagination. Now, a symbol had a value because it could suggest many things at that same time, like I told you, one. And because of this value which was attached to symbolism, allegorical references were also heightened. Allegory is going to be used in the poetry as well. ठीक है? And myth भी use हो रही है, and they are also talking about that these symbols in language, they are resources of inexpressible, the finite through the available sources of language that led to symbol at one level and myth. Yani a symbol could represent a myth as well. It was not simple symbol, it could have allegorical meaning as well, it could have a personal connotative meaning as well. तो बहुत लेवल की इंटरप्रिटेशन अवेलेबल हो सकती है विद वन सिंबल. फॉर एग्जांपल, symbol of death. Mostly in romantic poetry, symbol of death is shown with the uh, you know um, setting of the sun, or darkness, or evening time, or dying of a plant or a flower. ये सारी जो symbols हैं, ये सिर्फ एक सिंबल नहीं है, इसको mythologically भी, allegorically भी represent किया जा सकता है. That's why it is something that becomes complicated for some of the students. Then we have other concepts such as emotion, lyrical poetry, and the self. Now, these words that you can see, they are intervened, or we can say they are the amalgamation of imagination, nature, and symbolism altogether, that corresponds to the increased value of personal feeling, intuition, and instinct. Now, intuition, instinct, and feeling, all these three things, they go hand in hand, because romantics believed that feelings and emotions were the काउंटर ऑफ रीजनिंग. यानी दे बिलीव कि सिर्फ रीजनिंग नहीं हो सकती, इमोशंस के साथ रीजनिंग को साइड बाय साइड चलना. इट्स लाइक अ कॉम्प्लीमेंट. दे थॉट दैट इमोशंस वर द एसेंशियल कॉम्प्लीमेंट टू द रीजनिंग, एंड they did not reject either of them. जैसे classism में they somehow, to some level, to some extent, rejected certain idealistic perspectives that were presented to them. But these people, the romantics, did not reject reason completely, but they felt that logic alone was, or the restriction alone was not enough. ठीक है? उसके बाद लाइक आई टोल्ड यू, वो जो हमारी एक एग्जांपल है वर्ड्सवर्थ की डेफिनेशन, द स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो ऑफ पावरफुल फीलिंग्स, इट्स द टर्निंग पॉइंट इन द हिस्ट्री. इट इज टेकन एज वन ऑफ द टर्निंग पॉइंट्स ऑफ द हिस्ट्री in the realm of poetry. Then comes the mention of lyrical poetry, that how first person um, you know lyrical poetry took place, and it was given great importance in this age. They also talk about how imitating life, how representing the inner world of the poet was more appreciated or more superior than reasoning. यानी एक poet जो feel कर रहा था, उसको ज़्यादा heightened किया जाता था. And then comes Song of Self. Again, that is again Whitman's reference जो पहले भी दिया गया है. Now, Wordsworth has written a poem, The Prelude. Prelude में it's all about his school days कि वो जब स्कूल में बच्चा था, यानी imaginations करता था, childhood memories, nostalgia, ऐसी चीज़ों को highlight किया जाता है. So all those developments of his personal self or his self are being represented in the prelude, and the reference वर्ड्सवर्थ के प्रोलूड के शुरू में एक रेफरेंस, एक एलेगोरिकल रेफरेंस दिया गया है जो विटमैन की पोएम से दिया गया. सो इस तरह के कन्फेशनल रेफरेंसेस you'll find in the poetry as well. So these works they treat development of the self as a major aspect. अब the prelude में पूरी poem में पोएट अपने बारे में कि उसको एज अ स्कूल बॉय कैसा फील हुआ, जब वो एडोलेसेंस में गया तो कैसा फील हुआ, जब उसे प्यार हुआ तो उसे कैसा फील हुआ, उसका अपने सिबलिंग्स के साथ कैसा रिलेशन था, अपने पेरेंट्स के साथ कैसा रिलेशन था, टीचर्स के साथ कैसा. अब ये एक ग्रोथ की स्टोरी है. दिस इज अ स्टोरी ऑफ पर्सनल डेवलपमेंट एंड ही यूज्ड अ लॉट ऑफ नेचर्स इमेजरी टू शोकेस दैट. Therefore, he is also called a poet of nature. ठीक है? I hope it's making sense that romanticism gave special uh, supremacy or supreme value to personal feelings, expressions, lyrical poetry, and self growth. इन चीज़ों पर यानी inner experiences and self reflection and discovery पर उन्होंने बहुत सारा focus किया. ठीक है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल यहाँ पे है द इंटीरियर जर्नी एंड द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द सेल्फ. अब ये थोड़ा सा और लैंग्वेज में लिखा है लेकिन बात वही है. द इंटीरियर जर्नी एंड द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द सेल्फ recurred reoccurred everywhere as subject material for the romantic artist. The artist as hero is a specifically romantic type, so it was all about the poet and their feelings. Then there's a contrast with neoclassical poetry that we have discussed. I'll not get into it again, just remember how they are different. And then individualism, that romantic hero, and that individualistic thought process was one of the main characteristics as well. That uh, the romantic hero would feel the need to be isolated from the rest of the world. So the concept of individual was highly significant in romanticism. It was unique, unusual, and eccentric. All the poets they felt like they valued their unique, unusual, and eccentric personality characteristics. Different character types were also there. Now the romantics they created their own special kinds of heroes. Now the hero, the kind of hero they're talking about, there are certain people mentioned over here. Now in style the romantics preferred boldness over the preceding age's desire for restraint, maximum suggestiveness over the neoclassical. Again the comparison between the two are going on, right? The romantic hero was a hero artist. He was rebellious, he was bold, he was defiant, he loved challenging the limits and authority. वो एक गैलेंट किस्म का हीरो नहीं था जैसे हमारे पास न्यू क्लासिकल ड्रामाज में था कि यस माय लेडी और कि माय लेडी, इस तरह की बातें नहीं करता था. अगर उसको लेडी में इंटरेस्ट है वो लेडी को डायरेक्ट बोलता था दैट योर हेयर इज़ लाइक अ dancing cataract in my heart and my heart is vexed for you. सो वो बिल्कुल क्लियरली एक्सप्रेस करता था. ठीक है. वो एक्टिव सेंटेंसेस यूज करता था दैट दिस इज व्हाट आई फील, यानी पर्सनल प्रोनाउंस वर बीइंग यूज्ड. Then examples have been mentioned over here from Prometheus to Captain Ahab, and they also talk about the outcasts and isolated figures such as Ancient Mariner and Hester Payne and Kane. Faust is a major romantic figure as well. And if you talk about their style, style was also grandeur. It was has having a decorum, and the poets were inspired creators. They had freedom, they had experimentation, and they had boldness. They were not restrained with the rules and regulations. Now, romantics allied themselves with the very periods of literature that the neoclassicists had dismissed, such as the Middle Ages or the Baroque, or they embraced their, barbarian approach towards it. So they were the mixture of all the rejected absolute systems from the history, and they recreated it, reproduced it in a new um, way. ठीक है. Then everyday and the exotic. The attitude of many romantics to the everyday social world around them was complicated. This is something that you need to understand. Complication is the second name of romanticism, जो हमें पता होना चाहिए कि although romanticism celebrated individual, rebel, outcast, and inspired artists, but then there were other ways to look at it. There is only not one way, but multiple ways to look at it. Uh, if we talk about the everyday and the exotic, that is also um, down to see through down to earth characters like Wordsworth rustics through everyday language in Emily Bronte's northern dialects of Whitman's colloquialism. So they talked about everyday kind of characters जिसमें हमारे पास एक local village girl भी हो सकती है, domestic help भी हो सकती है. It can also be about a folk narrative, it could be about a tree, it could be about daffodils or flowers. So वो इस तरह से भी बात करते थे. And exotic मतलब something different, something unique, something um, um, extraordinary. So they talked about all kinds of subject matters, but their poetic diction was more inclined towards everyday talk, but their subject matter could include exotic subject matters as well. Simultaneously, as opposed to everyday subjects, various forms of exotic in time and place also gained favor, for the Romantics were also fascinated with the realms of existence that were, by definition, prior or opposed to the ordered conceptions of objective reasoning. So they were not only talking about the common things but also about the exotic things. Now, in lyrical ballads, Wordsworth and Coleridge agreed to divide their labors according to two subject areas, the natural and the supernatural. So they included gothic elements, supernatural elements as well. For example, one of the poems by S.T. Coleridge is called The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Once you read it, you will find yourself conflicted whether the character is actually experiencing what is being said or it is just a figment of imagination. Same goes for Kubla Khan. It is such a short poem, but such a complicated poem that one can get very much confused after reading. And Coleridge is a character of, you know, eccentric qualities. He was always sick. We'll talk about Coleridge in detail if it is included in your course outline. मगर अगर आप उसकी बात करें तो वो आपको सुपर नेचुरल सा ही लगेगा अगर आप कॉलरिज के बारे में थोड़ा सा पढ़ें. The reference that they have given is Frankenstein, written by Mary Shelley. It's a very famous character in the history. I think I did mention it, maybe in your class or in another class. Frankenstein was a doctor who created a new human out of curiosity for his medical practices, which resulted into something that he did not expect. He tried to play God and it backfired, right? So that is also the figment of imagination, human trying to make another human with different body parts from different dead bodies. That is another level of, you know, vastness of natural and supernatural elements coming together. Even if I stitch together so many body parts from different people, I do not have the ability to give it life. But in Frankenstein, he finds a way to do it anyway. So that is the power of imagination. And then we have romantic artists in society. The romantics were ambivalent toward the real social world around them, which means that they were very bothered about it. They were politically and socially involved, but they also simultaneously started to distance themselves from public because it definitely gave them a burden of emotions because they were sensitive people. Uh, they had conscience that burdened their ability to move forward with those fake expression. They were less hypocritical और उन्हें जो feel होता था to the core होता था, and that is why they had to distance or they had to confine to boundaries around them. So that was the theme. Yet a significant romantic theme became the contrast between artist and middle class. Philistine, unfortunately, in many ways, this distance between artist and public remains with us today. So, of course, not all the people in the society were very much big of fans of romantics. Some of them did not अप्रूव ऑफ इट. सो वो जो एक डिस्टेंस क्रिएट हुआ था वो बहुत ज़्यादा था. माई वॉइस इज ब्रेकिंग. No. Maybe I'm a little tired. It's okay. I'll take a break of 5 to 10 minutes after we are finished with this handout, and then we can move forward. I'll try to speak a little louder. It should be noted,
Ma'am, excuse me.
Gigi.
Ma'am, I think I did a typo mistake here. I was trying to say कि internet glitch आ रहा है बीच में बहुत ज़्यादा.
All right, that's all right. This is being recorded. आप बाद में सुन भी सकते हैं. जो पॉइंट रह जाए उसको दोबारा बेशक सुन लीजिएगा.
Yes,
मैम
ma'am. Thank
एक्सक्यूज मी,
you.
हमारी लाइट नहीं है तो मैंने अपने फादर का मतलब कोई हॉटस्पॉट ऑन किया. ये क्लास कितने बजे तक है?
This is going to last till 1:15. Anyway,
150 मैम.
वन 1:15 बेटे. 15.
ओके.
Ah. Okay, spread of the romantic spirit. Finally, it should be noted that the revolutionary energy underlying the romantic movement affected not just literature, but arts from music, painting, sculpture to architecture. For example, in America, the great landscape painters, particularly those of Hudson River School and the utopian social colonies that thrived in the 19th century, are manifestations of the romantic spirit on this side of the Atlantic. If you would like, आप इनको इंटरनेट पे सर्च करके देख भी सकते हैं. And then there are certain recent developments. Symbolism and realism is also part of. They've made their ways into romanticism. There are a number of literary theorists. They have called into question two major romantic perceptions: that the literary text is separate, individuated living organism, and that the artist is fearlessly independent genius who creates original work. So, in current theory, living work has been dissolved into the sea of intertextuality. ये थोड़ा सा complicated हो जाता है. You can read it at your own if you would like. Right, so that was the crux of Romantic Age. A very short introduction. There is much more to it that you should know, and I'll be telling you more about it while we study about the poets.